Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about some Jodie Whittaker era Doctor Who. Wait! Come back! Come back! Come back! Come back! And like 90% of my audience clicks off the video right there. Come back! I promise it'll be alright! So we're going to talk about 5 Doctor Who stories from the Jodie Whittaker. I think her 5 best episodes, and I do think they are 5 good Doctor Who episodes, not just for the Jodie Whittaker era. I think they're 5 good Jodie Whittaker episodes, because her era is not all just garbage. There's some garbage in there for sure, but there are some nice shining bright spots in her era, at least in her first 2 seasons. And we're going to talk about some of those today. These aren't in any particular order, although the first one we're going to talk about is my favorite from her era, and that is Power of the Doctor. I thought Power of the Doctor was a nice culmination of things. It feels like a celebratory event. It feels more like the 60th anniversary celebration than the actual 60th anniversary celebrations. Like, it works as a celebration of everything Doctor Who. The closest equivalent I can compare it to is it feels like the modern Who version of the 5 Doctors. The 5 Doctors doesn't have the strongest plot in the world, but it feels like it was never intended to. It feels like it's just something made to celebrate 20 years of Doctor Who, and the 5 Doctors does that well. It's not perfect. Sarah Jane is very underutilized in it, but it's a fantastic celebration of Doctor Who, and it's just nice to see everybody there. The Power of the Doctor's kind of like that too. The plot's a little, sure, let's just roll with it. You know, it's not the greatest plot ever, let's be honest, but it's a great excuse to have all of these characters there, to have Graham come back, to have Yaz, to have Ace, to have Tegan, to get our cameos from previous Doctors. It feels like a great chance to get the gang back together and celebrate everything that makes Doctor Who, with having the Daleks, the Cybermen, and the Master, just like the 5 Doctors did. It's very, very interesting, and I enjoy it, even especially the Master wearing that outfit with all the previous Doctors, and he's killing it. It's just a fun, exciting, celebratory episode, which again feels more like a celebration of the show than the actual 60th anniversary specials we got. Which are fine in their own rights as well, but don't really feel like 60th anniversary specials the way this did. This actually would have been a good send-off for the show. If the modern series had ended with Power of the Doctor, it would have been a good series finale. It did a really good job of celebrating everything Doctor Who up to that point. I think pretty well. Would I have loved to have seen Tom Baker? Sure. And they did ask Tom to come, so that's not their fault. But it was really nice to see Ace and Tegan again. I absolutely love Janet and Sophie, and they just feel perfect in these characters. The thing is that Ace and Tegan, Janet and Sophie have been doing these characters in Big Finish so much. They know these characters inside and out. They very much have taken, mental ownership of these characters, and they understand exactly where these characters are in their lives now, and I feel like they both perform very well in those roles in this special. I love when Graham comes back. It's good to see him. He's got some nice humorous moments. I loved having everyone there at the end and the kind of Companions 101 thing, and seeing Katie there, seeing William Russell there, and seeing Mel. It was wonderful. It was a nice little touching scene. I mean, who thought we'd get William Russell in an episode of Doctor Who in 2022? And I'm so glad they did. He set a Guinness Book World's Record with that. That's lovely. And then getting the chance to see Ace and Tegan interact with their doctors as well. The holographic doctor thing, I think, is a clever idea, because it gives Jodie Whittaker a chance to be in her final story a lot when her character is sidelined part of the story, when the Master has possession of her body. It gives her a chance to still be in her story. But it also gives a great excuse to have Peter Davison and Sylvester McCoy step back into their roles via the hologram. Yes, they look a little older, but that's fine. Who fans have never minded the Doctor looking a little older. That's just something we roll with. We're just happy to have them back. And the fact that the brief scenes they have with their companions, with their respective companions, are very touching, very heartfelt. Those scenes move me, probably more than any other scene in the Whittaker era. Part of that could just be the nostalgia for me. I have such an attachment to these characters. I grew up with these characters. That those scenes move me a lot. And then it also looks really good. Nice production values. I also really enjoy the regeneration. I like the fact it's not a drawn-out regeneration. The fact that she just kind of says, take care of the next one. She goes out to the little peak, says a couple lines, and then regenerates. It's handled really well. I actually really enjoy her regeneration, more so than some of the previous ones. And the cinematography of her regeneration is really well done. You could tell they were going to possibly leave it open-ended, since there was talk of the show being canceled, with, the little camera spinning around her and maybe that being where it ended. It would have worked really well as a series finale. It's a strong, strong episode of Doctor Who. Maybe not the best plot-wise, but a great celebration of Doctor Who. I'll give Chibs credit. He knocked it out of the park with that one. Next on the list is the Tesla episode. I've hammered on about that one before. I love the Tesla episode. Part of that is down to the fact the guy playing Tesla is so good. He's so good as Tesla. Like, from now on, when I think of Tesla, I'm not going to think of Tesla. I'm going to think of this guy playing Tesla. As I mentioned before on the channel, kind of like when I think of General Patton, I don't necessarily think of Patton. I think of George C. Scott as Patton. That's just Patton in my mind. This guy is just Tesla in my mind. That's Tesla from now on. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the fact they got the girl that plays Ronnie in the Sarah Jane Adventures to kind of play the alien monster queen. That's cool. They got her in Doctor Who proper. I like that. The guy playing Thomas Edison, he's really good. And I enjoy the story. I like the fact we got to see the Doctor kind of fangirling over at Tesla a little bit. The fact that the companions are looking at some of the stuff Tesla was thinking up back then, being like, hey, that's basically the internet. That was pretty cool. It's just a nice, fun story. I enjoy it. A lot of good acting, a lot of good casting, a lot of good action. Next on the list is Can You Hear Me? I like this one a lot. I think Whittaker's best performance in the role is the end of this episode, when she's basically calling the gods out. And she's like, I'm the Doctor and I can stop you. We're gods. I don't care. I forget her dialogue right there. One, the dialogue she has right there, beautifully written. Secondly, Whittaker sells it. There are not a lot of moments where I sit there and go, that's the Doctor, but she nails it there. I will give her full props there that Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor right there. She nails that final scene so well. It's a little Deus Machina. The whole Sonic that can't work on wood can hack the fingers of gods to take them over. That's a little, let's be honest, that's a little plot holy to me, but that's really my only major complaint. Other than that, I think it's pretty sound. And the fact that it kind of has to do that with the 45-minute format that the show has. I really think this story in the classic Who format as a 4-parter, where you would have had a little more breathing room to work with, you could have maybe come up with a little better way of her turning the tables, I think the story would have been almost perfect. I think it would have been a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. As it is, it's still really strong. The casting is really good. Both of the actors cast as the god characters are really good. The male and the female one, they're both really good. The male one maybe a little more just because he's in the story more, and he does have that creepy vibe to him that he just does so well with that cool voice. He got a really cool voice. And the scene he has with the Doctor, when he's like, that's just a legend, and he's like, I blush. I love that interaction between them. It's really, really good. And the fact we get to see some of Ryan's home life with his friends and kind of how the negative effect that traveling with the Doctor can have when you're away for a while and you lose touch with people. I enjoy seeing that. And the fact that that's ultimately kind of what leads Ryan to live. He wants to get back to living his life, his normal life. I like that we got to see that in this episode, some of that here, that we see some of the consequences of traveling with the Doctor. I feel like this episode does that really well. Very strong episode. Next on the list is Demons of the Punjab. I have gone on at length about Demons of the Punjab. This is very much a sleeper hit to me. Often overlooked. This is the closest we've gotten to a First Doctor historical probably since Black Orchid. Because it almost is a pure historical. The episode cleverly does a good job of tricking you into thinking it's a pseudo-historical and that the aliens are involved. But if you think about it, that's really a red herring. It's really to throw you off, and the true villain of the story is history, historical events. This, very much like a pure historical, is history just playing out the way the First Doctor historicals do, where the First Doctor ends up in a spot with his companions. It's a bad spot, and they have to get the heck out of there. They can't interfere with history. They just have to get out. That's pretty much how this is for the most part. They get there, stuff happens. They're kind of helping out the people there, but they have to just get out, especially as the Doctor warns Yaz, be careful, you're treading on your own history. And I love that line, by the way. Very well written line that always sticks in my head. It has some silly moments in it. The Doctor undoing the knot with the Sonic. The Sonic gets a lot of overuse in Modern Who. But it's cast really well. The guy who gets killed, her husband, I forget his name, he's phenomenal in this. Phenomenal. I love him. Give him an award. Especially that scene at the end when he's confronting those guys and his brothers. I love what he does with that scene. I mean, all of them there. Even the guy playing his brother is really good. It's very well cast, this episode. You just get, and this was not a historical moment that I knew about. I was unaware of partition. I never knew about it. Again, I'm an American. I get that's part of British history. But you know, as an American, it's just not something I was ever taught. So it was like a First Doctor historical where the point of the episodes was to teach history lessons. I learned a lesson in history and did actually get online and look up the events this episode chronicles. So I actually did learn something. So again, stretching back, connecting to that First Doctor era. And I love the First Doctor's era. This feels like such a love letter to classic Who First Doctor era. And I think a lot of people have never made that connection between them. But it's just a really good episode of Doctor Who. And then last on the list for me is the Ghost Monument. I find this one really enjoyable. Again, I like the casting, especially the guest cast are really what sells this episode for me. You have the main guy and the main girl that are competing. I like both of them. The guy who runs the tent as the hologram, I like him a lot. Like, we demand you set them free. No, and he just leaves. I love that. I love the fact the Ghost Monument was the TARDIS. I called that the first time I watched it. I was like, I bet it's the TARDIS. So knowing that it was the TARDIS, I like the idea, as come up several times in the past few years, of the TARDIS just kind of being this funny little odd thing that sits there and grows old, like the Fourth Doctor mentions in Wild Blue Yonder, kind of like what we get in 73 Yards. It's just this little oddity that sits there. And it's kind of like that here. That's fascinating for me. I love the living bandages idea. I've mentioned several times on the channel that hits a nostalgic chord with me because it kind of ties into an episode, or it reminds me of an episode of Thundercats, one of the trial episodes of Thundercats. And I love Thundercats. Most of you in some of the backgrounds of some of the older videos, you know, you've seen my Super 7 Thundercats stuff. I have some of them up out of camera view, but I love the original Thundercats. It was my favorite cartoon as a kid. I have a huge nostalgic attachment to it. And so it having that callback kind of to Thundercats really touches me. I like the guest cast. I like the voice of the bandages, which I think is the same guy from Can You Hear Me, who plays the male god. I think that's the same guy. I'm not sure, but I think that is. I could be wrong. Someone will tell me in the comments. It's just a really cool voice that kind of makes me think of Gabriel Wolf. Cool voice, you know. So I enjoyed that. I like the fact the water was poisonous. I wish they'd done more with that, with the water being deadly. It just kind of is mentioned and not brought up again. It ends really well. I like that. Good episode. So those are 5, not the only 5 to be fair, but those are just 5 Whittaker era episodes that are good episodes of Doctor Who. Because I do, you know, you guys know I will do a video talking about the problems with the Whittaker era. And it is my least favorite era. Whittaker's my least favorite Doctor. But I think, because I'm all about honesty on this channel. I don't do this channel for clicks. I do this channel because I like talking about Doctor Who. If nothing else, I want people who watch my channel to know that I come across as genuine and sincere. And I think I do. But when there are episodes from this era that I like, and there are, I feel I should do videos about that. I feel like Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker deserve that. If there are things to praise about this era, then they should be praised. And those are 5 episodes of the Jodie Whittaker era that are not only good Jodie Whittaker era episodes of Doctor Who. They're just good episodes of Doctor Who, period. So I want to know what you think of these episodes, and I want to know what you think are 5 good Jodie Whittaker era stories. Comment down below, and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. There's a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to a couple of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney and Sam Venning. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if you would like to support me on that. A link to my Amazon wish list is down there. A link to my Amazon UK wish list is also down there. Most importantly, thank you for watching.